Buenos días, ¿cómo están ustedes? Muy bien, más o menos terrible. Muy bien. I'm Maggie Roll. I teach Spanish mostly at Hazard High School, and Spanish can be a big learning curve for some of my students, and I have trouble with them just coming in and saying this is hard and kind of shutting down. So student engagement is my number one challenge, and you'll see on my handout this year I teach Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. I have a block Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 class. I have a dual credit class with our community college, and I have a college and career readiness senior reading class that's in English. It's just remedial reading. So trying to get all those students engaged from 8th graders all the way through seniors is a big challenge for me. And I went to a lesson planning workshop a couple years ago, and they said, as teachers, every year, try to commit to one thing that will make your life easier. And technology doesn't always do that, but I think in some ways it can. And so my grant is Personalized Learning on Fire. I want to engage my students by meeting them where they are, and I can do that a little bit more easily with technology. So I wrote my grant for Kindle Fire tablets because they're less expensive. My students can access the internet using those devices, and I'm hopeful that my reading students can download reading material and read on those devices. So in terms of meeting my students where they are, at the midterm with my freshman Spanish 1 block class, I had 14 out of 30 students failing because they just weren't engaged. If we can't engage them, they're not going to be successful. So I'm using the online learning management system, Schoology, which is a great resource. I'm just using the free version, but there are even more complex versions out there. You may use Google Classroom, or there are other platforms you can use, but using Schoology has changed my life. I can organize my class content online, so it helps me stay organized. Students can turn in assignments online. So for disorganized students, it's great. They can't lose a paper. It's online for them. If students are absent, they can just check their course on Schoology. There's a calendar function that tells them what's due each day. For my shy students who don't want to talk a lot in class, I can give them an online discussion board so they can write their comments back and forth to other students instead of having to speak up in class. There are some of my students who don't love technology, and they would rather write on a piece of paper. So I can give them a hard copy of an assignment. They can do it with paper and pencil. They can take a picture with their cell phone and turn it in on Schoology. For my Spanish students, it's great because there's an app you can download to your phone, and they can record a conversation in Spanish and turn that in on Schoology. So I can grade it that way. Schoology interacts really well with other apps, with other online programs. So if your school uses Infinite Campus, if you use Google Drives or Google Docs, Schoology works really well with those other resources as well. Another resource that really has been helpful to me with Spanish is a website called Senor Wooly. Senor Wooly was created by a Spanish teacher, and it's music videos that are geared toward middle school and high school students. And you can watch the video with subtitles, English or Spanish, and then there are listening comprehension activities, vocabulary activities, lots of resources to practice with the language, but I can set it to different proficiency levels. So my Spanish 1 students can start out at novice. They're just recognizing some words and phrases for all the work that they do on that website. For my Spanish 2 students, they can move to novice high, where they're working more in complete sentences, or even intermediate low, where they're creating with the language. They're starting to ask more questions and give more detail. So I can set those proficiency levels for a certain class, or I can even set them for individual students. So I really can meet my students where they are, try to engage them at their ability level, and then the stories have to do with all different content. There's one about, can I go to the bathroom? And the teacher's really mean and lets this other guy go, but I really have to go. And there are some that are kind of strange, like, a horror movie. There's some that are really cute, like a little boy's trying to ask a girl out and she doesn't want to go out with him. So they also, I think, engage students because there's a variety of content. So whatever your interest is, you'll find one of those videos that's interesting to you, hopefully. So by using tablets, there's so many resources online. You do have to sift through them a little bit, but I am excited for my senior reading class about trying to use electronic books. We lost our librarian this year because she took a principal position in another district. And so I've reached out to our public library, and they are working to send a resource person to come help my students make sure they all have a library card, and then teach us how to use Overdrive, which is their library of electronic books. And I'm really hoping that my students who would not do a book report project for me, I hope that maybe if they can read electronically, I'm hoping they'll be more likely to read. I did assign a book report project. I just have 20 seniors. 10 were supposed to present, and none did the book report project. And I know they have access to books. They could choose, a book that interests them, but I'm hoping maybe if they can just pull out their device and read on the device, maybe that will engage them a little bit more. There are also all kinds of great ACT prep resources online, and my district actually has purchased some really good ones. CERT is one where the students can take ACT practice tests, and then they can see what they've missed and watch a little video that shows them what the right answer was and explains why that's correct. So I think having these devices will really help students be able to work more on that as well. So in thinking about how I'll measure outcomes, just giving students the devices doesn't erase all of our problems as teachers, and I really appreciate that some other presenters have talked about logistics and, technology is not the solution in itself. But I think with the technology, it's easy to see if the students are doing the work. I can pull up my Schoology and see who's turned in an assignment. With a lot of these web resources, I can see exactly when students logged on, how much time they spent doing an assignment. And then, of course, in being able to set proficiency levels, I can see is there growth over time. Schoology really is like an online portfolio. I can listen to those recorded conversations from August and compare in December and in May, are the students improving? And so I think some assessment results are good. That's necessary data. But I also think just anecdotally, are the students excited? Are they engaged? I had my husband talk to the parent of a student the other day at the doctor's office and came home and said, oh, so-and-so's mom said she loves your class. It's your favorite class. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's my worst class. I yell at them. I don't always let them do hands up, stand up, pair up to talk to people because they won't talk in Spanish. They get off topic. And so I think a lot of times we plant seeds in students and we don't always see the harvest or the outcome. Sometimes it's not about the test scores, but just about, are the students enjoying? Do they want to learn? Are they willing to try to use the material outside of class? I had a coworker whose niece is in one of my classes say, oh, so-and-so went to the Spanish restaurant for her birthday. She went to the Mexican restaurant, and she was trying to speak Spanish to the waiter, and she wanted you to know that she's trying to use Spanish outside of the classroom. So those are some of the ways that I hope to measure the results.